So,
Okay.
Marcellus, thank you for joining me here today to talk about your new feature film, your first feature that you've directed, Mickey Hardaway. I had a chance to see it and review it, and I know you're a busy man, so I really appreciate you taking time today so we could talk about this very interesting film that you got that you made. If you could, sir, introduce yourself just a little bit. Tell us about yourself and when you first got into filmmaking.
Okay. Well, again, I appreciate you for having me on.
You
For
bet.
those who don't know me, my name is Marcellus Cox. I'm a writer and director out of Los Angeles, California. A little bit about myself. I've been wanting to do filmmaking since about 10 years old. So this has been an insane passion of mine. And I know it is a passion because we're all insane to do it. as hard as as hard as it is to do and be in this business.
Uh,
So, but I've always loved cinema. I'm an art house guy. I'm always loving stories that are based on something that's meaningful, something
mhm,
that's that transcends the craft, transcends the art. So, I mean, but then again, I'm always fine with a blockbuster too. But um, about my work, overall, I've this is my first feature, as you said. I've done 7 shorts. Overall, my work has screened in over 200 international film festivals
wow,
worldwide.
nice.
One as of right now, total was 171 film awards. So,
Wow.
um,
So that's great. That's such a great accomplishment, especially for indie films, because there's so many out there. And
especially so there's a lot of money that's been spent too,
there's
but
that
it's just
too.
fine.
Yeah, there's that too. You just gotta, yeah, the plight of the indie filmmaker for sure. So if you wouldn't mind, I always love getting in the words of the filmmaker uh what their film is about. So if you could just give my listeners a little bit a taste of what Mickey Hardaway is about.
Okay, so Mickey Hardaway is a psychological drama. It is about a young sketch artist who goes to a in-house therapy session with a well-renowned psychiatrist in an attempt to kind of gather his life back in control after years of physical and verbal abuse has kind of taken a toll on him from multiple directions, whether it's personal or professional. So it's a story about a dreamer and what happens when society puts its throat on your dream.
Yeah, and I loved going into it cold because I didn't know much about it, and I came out of it just this is an amazing picture, especially if artists out there, especially I think, should check this film out because it really felt like you were speaking from your heart as an artist. Is that, where did the idea of this come from? Did that come kind of from that?
It definitely came from that. Just the perspective of being told numerous times over your life that art is a waste, that there's no future in it, there's no financial profit in it. Even though you know that it's something you love to do, it's not about the money. It's just about the love of it. And for me, I mean, no disrespect to any other art form, but the visual component of cinema is by far, in my opinion, the best form of art.
Mhm.
And to be able to visually showcase something that no one has seen, and this type of artistical endeavor, many people frown upon unless you become the next Spielberg or whatever, which is very, very rare. But so for me, this was as much as my personal story as it was for anybody else who has been in a situation. Not only that, but the journey of becoming an artist,
Mhm.
and even more so getting these kind of stories from people who I've talked to when putting the character together, those who unfortunately who are no longer with us because of the pressure of the world that's basically kind of like pounced on them,
Mhm.
whether it was from family members who didn't believe or just people in general who treat people a certain kind of way in which it can basically derail someone's confidence, derail someone's heart and their soul into a direction of, you know, spoiler, but suicidal thoughts and suicidal situations. So this was something that it wasn't just a fabric of my own life, it was a fabric of anybody else who's basically kind of dealt with these situations. So it was something that was really personal. It is personal, even though it's not my full account.
Mhm.
It's something that I know anybody who is a part of the art form, no matter what you do, you will understand and you can relate to it in multiple layers.
Yeah, I know I did. I've been told I'm a creative person. We're all our own worst critics, right? But
Exactly.
I related quite a bit to the Mickey character, and I just felt I felt so torn for this man because he had talent and he was trying, and every step of the way he kept hitting the roadblocks, either in his family, which unfortunately I've known few people, not quite to that extreme, who've had families similar to that, or in just society. I mean, did you do a lot of research then? It sounds like you did talk to a number of individuals. Did you do a lot of research on mental health and the effects of abuse and such?
Yes, it did. That was one of the biggest things I did. And particularly this meeting with younger people. So I spent a lot of time on colleges, whether it was at USC or whether it was at Chapman or any of the Cal State programs, and just the Cal Art programs as well. And you meet these artists who are in these programs, and you just try to get a feel for them. And you see a lot of Mickeys out there, whether it's
Mhm,
male or female, and they're going through these scenarios, and the stories that you hear are just insanely unbelievable. And when you're putting a character like this together, it's a combination of all of those things, getting these stories wrapped into one. Because you mean people will see something like this and they would think to this stream, oh, nobody's life can be like that, until you actually meet those individuals,
mhm,
and then you just like you come to grips with it. Like this is real.
mhm,
This is the kind of life that a lot of these people, and particularly in the art form, whether it's where you're a cartoonist or you're a painter or you're a musician, these are the kind of lives these people are living.
mhm,
And I felt like for me, the best way to showcase that is not only to put my own account there, but to really put everybody else's. Who I think I must have talked to about at least at the most about almost 90 different people, different races
wow.
and ethnicities. So
Mhm,
it was really a wide opening effect on me, in terms of like this really seeing the struggle of
mhm,
the individuals, not only from the artistical perspective, but just from the mental perspective. And then you're talking to people who are part of the mental health world,
mhm.
and that was one of the things I wanted to showcase early on to them when I wrote the script, and then also when I got finished with the final cut, was showing them, even though I felt like the sound wasn't ready yet, but still I showed them the film. And you're still getting the feedback from them, and the fact that they were able to break it down and they can understand characteristics and they see these things, and they felt that I showcased it in the proper manner,
Mhm.
without it basically being disrespectful, but in a way using it as a character study. And the approval of that was like, like I know I was on the right track. So
Yeah.
these kind of things were just really more just to showcase, and you really want to just put that on the screen, because it's the only way to see it is to be real about it, because these situations are happening.
Yeah, it felt very grounded. I mean, we've all seen films that have portrayed this to where it seems like almost too extreme. It's kind of like you said, oh, there's no one's life who's like that. But there are, but you managed to also keep this grounded. And it sounds like was that feedback helpful when you showed it to folks in various stages to help kind of cut back and maybe change it thing a little bit to make it more realistic?
Well, that too, yes, that
Mhm.
helped this to get the feedback. One of the things that I think I did was, when I go to these meetings, I record it,
Mm,
so that
mhm,
I can get a feel for the individual, not just from the face-to-face interaction, but just from afar as well. So I
mm,
just kind of follow up a few of these people just during the day, and you see the way that they react, and they seem like things are calm. It's not over the top. It's not as theatrical as you would see in most
right.
films. Most of these people really are grounded, but at the same time, they're broken.
Yeah.
And I think that was what you wanted to portray. You're not portraying someone who's a villain. You're not portraying someone who's a hero. You're portraying a broken spirit, and you see it in the personality. And that was one of the things that I felt like I had to, at the very most, just keep this as neutrally realistic as possible. Nothing that's going to seem like it's melodramatic, and nothing that's going to seem like it's theatrically over the top just for like self-expression. it had to feel like it was like someone who was really living this life, really in this situation. And the best thing was just getting the feedback from people who I trust, and particularly writers and other filmmakers, but in particularly just the people who are actually living these lives, and being able to get a great response from it. And I know that I was on the right track. So I felt good about it, and I still feel good about it. And so far, the reviews from like people yourself and others have basically told me I think I did something right with this. So,
You did. I think you nailed it pretty good. Absolutely. You know, and the way you tell your story too. What I liked about it was you play a little bit on assumptions. At least
mm,
the impression I got was that you play a little bit on assumptions to where we'll get a scene with Mickey who's talking to his therapist, and at first you're thinking, well, this is a young individual, maybe he's blowing it out of proportion. Why is he agitated like this? So, but then you would jump to something that happened prior to catch us up, and then you're just like, oh no, that makes total sense of why he's feeling the way he is and why he's, you know, as emotional about some of these things and why he really wants someone to help him out.
mm.
You know, the way you put the timeline together, you know, what was your motivation behind that, kind of presenting those elements a little bit out of order, not like completely linear?
Well, the reason for that is kind of like what you pointed to as this is the assumption. Because people mainly would think like, oh, come on now, okay, where are we going with this? You know, like guys, like you should have no problems at your age right now. But then when you start to play with the story, and then you throw it in their face immediately, like you just like you said, you're giving the perspective of I want to lure you in, like whatever. But then when you see it, oh my God, okay, I get it. And then if this plays that way, trajectory through the whole story, that was done purposely, just from the perspective of someone I know who's going to watch this and going to be like, get the hell out of here. You know what I mean? So, and that is exactly what I want. Those moments to me are the best moments so far I've seen in the theater with the live audience.
Mhm.
And then when you showcase it and you put it in their face, and people come out and it's like, oh my God, I apologize, bro, because I didn't see that coming. So yeah, it is playing somewhat on the audience's emotion,
Mhm.
not like you said, from the assumptional part, because I want to see where your head is at coming in here, especially when you come in cold. You kind of got a little bit of the synopsis, but you don't know the story. Now
Right.
you get to see an individual's life play out in front of you in a manner that you did not, expect. So
Mhm.
yeah, I definitely think that the assumptional part is without question where I was going with it.
Well, it definitely worked, and I think it gave it a little bit more of an emotional gut punch. What really helped too was your performance by your lead, Rashad Hunter. Tell me a little bit. How did you cast Rashad for this part? Because man, he made me feel for him so much in this movie. I was just like, I want to reach through the street and help this guy. You know.
Well, what was shot. So what happened was this actually really wasn't even supposed to be a concept short, but it ended up being
Mhm.
a concept short in 2020 because of COVID. So I
Right.
had the funding in place for the feature, and with COVID hit, that kind of derailed that. So we
Yeah.
went off and made the concept short. I had another actor who I had in mind for the role of Mickey, but he backed out. So
Oh.
went on the grind. We started looking for actors, and Rashad had the look. He didn't have the acting experience because he hadn't
Mm.
really done anything. So this is
Mhm.
really like his real first major role. So and he killed it. He nailed it. It just being able to basically give him all the characteristics of the role, and just allowing him to find his space and being able to work with him within the space of how he sees it and how I see it. So when I cast him, it was like, for me, this was a no-brainer. He had the look, and he played the personality exactly the way that I had wanted, and I had wished for the character. Not someone who's flashy, not someone
Mhm.
who's super cool, but he's not, like on the nerdy side either. He's just a normal individual who's in his own lane, his own world. And he plays it like a regular person who goes through a situation like this.
Mhm.
And I mean, like you said, he is so convincing with his performance. It actually it surprises me at times. I go back and I watch it. I'm like, did I tell him that? Like, did he? Like there's moments there's moments in the film where I go back and I look at his performance. I'm just like, I don't remember giving that direction, but I like it. We'll go with it. So, you know, I loved Rashad, man. The way he came, he was committed to the role and he gave us all. And you know, he's one of those guys, man. I want to see him do well and do bigger things than this in the future, because I know this guy is an absolute, like, he's a powerhouse in the making, and I know that he's going to have a great, 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 great career.
Yeah, he really was a natural. I couldn't tell, you know, and maybe it pays off that he hadn't had a whole lot of experience, because he was playing it more natural than someone who maybe, oh, I'm very experienced and I'm going to approach it this way. You know, I that might have helped in his grounding, but whatever, you know, he had it, and I felt for him, and the way you play this off too. Now you have Stephen Cofield in here, who's been in almost all your projects for the Doctor. And tell me a little bit about working with him, and casting him for the Doctor.
Steven is horrible, man. I can't stand Steven. Steven is the worst. Nah, I'm joking. That's about one of the closest things I'll ever get to a brother. Like outside of my brother, I love Steven. You know, but just the chemistry that we have together, working on projects. One of the reasons why I keep him around so long. He's a brilliant actor, brilliant talent, and you know, I had that role in mind for him from day one. So, but he's just one of those actors that you just know that when you see him, like he shines brightly, like more than what you would ever expect. So, you know, for me, it was a no-brainer to have him on board, and I just knew that when I gave him the role, he was going to kill
and, and he did as well. And
I'm sorry if you can hear my dog barking.
Oh, that's okay.
So not to ruin the flow. I want people to
No.
see this, because this is a normal life. She's barking because she doesn't have any water in her bowl, so I have to go get her some water in her bowl.
You want to take a break? You want to take a little break? Give her a bowl of water. I don't want to deny your dog.
I'm doing an interview, Puzzles. Relax, okay?
Oh.
No, you're fine. I can still do it and go. But I just want people to see that this is the kind of interview we're doing.
This is how real it is, right? You don't get this on
literally.
You don't get this on Entertainment Tonight or anything like that. Nope.
And you know what? I like it like that. I like the fact that somebody could be like, oh, he's literally in his apartment right now. He's doing this interview, like, and I have to stop to go give my dog some water just so she'll be quiet. Yes, this is the kind of life I'm living as a filmmaker.
Well, you've got the dog. The dog rules the roost. Your pets usually rule the roost. They direct you. You know, they own us, right? We don't own the pets.
Exactly. And I think she knows that. That's why she just had to hurry up and be like, you know what? Stop for a second and take care of me. So it's more than fine.
That's awesome. You know, one of the things that got me with this script too is you give a very balanced there's only like one villain in this film. And one person who it felt very balanced, because you could see the perspective from both sides, namely in the relationship between the Doctor and Mickey. You know, in that relationship, I kind of felt both sides. Like, you know, the Doctor's like, hey, I'm sorry, but our time is up. You know, and then and Mickey's like, I need a few more minutes. He's like, nah, I'm sorry, my time is up. I got another person. You kind of see both sides, though. If I was the Doctor, I'd be like, you know, maybe you should give the gentleman a few extra minutes. But you see both sides.
Yeah, you know, for me, when it comes to the script, I try to be as fair as possible when it comes to what I know should be on the screen and what I know being a certain realistic moments is. So I try to keep a good balance on that. For me, I felt like those kind of plots, and particularly with Dr. Harden and with Mickey in particular, I like to shorten the span each meeting. And you can hear like the clock ticking in the background. Is because that's just a perfect example of how you know he's going to explode. This is an explosive situation that's going to happen at any given moment. So that's the reason why it was done that way, because you can feel someone is just aching. They're ready to crack, and they're begging you for that, for that type of, I need this kind of attention from you right now to talk.
Mhm.
So that kind of vibe for me was really perfect between the two, and I kind of wanted to explore that because we appreciate the help, but at the same time, the help doesn't really do much. So I kind of
Yeah.
wanted to explore that that
Mhm.
that kind of aspect that the health system does kind of like lack in terms of and literally like time to care as opposed to just okay, I'm gonna
Mhm.
just do this for a certain amount of time and then it's going my way.
Right.
So you get an individual who does seems to show he cares, but at the same time he keeps the standard practice. So I kind of wanted to explore those situations and how the health system does kind of fail you in those particular moments, especially when you know you need them the most. And in terms of the characters and then the balance, yes, there is a particularly one billing, and that's the Nathan Hammerson character. I felt like for me, I don't try to portray characters, but I do try to portray real people. So you'll
Mhm.
see certain people who do come off as assholes in the film. They don't. Technically, you can tell they're not people. They're just people from different generations, different times.
Mhm.
And I just kind of wanted to showcase that they're not bad people, but they don't get your perspective. They don't get your viewpoint.
Right.
So there's those moments in the film, like in the script. I just try to be as real as possible. I don't try to make anything that's like over the top. I try to make sure that when I'm creating these characters and I'm creating the dialogue, that it feels authentic as much as humanly possible. So it's just a matter of, like you said, just going back, getting the feedback from people, and then going back and keep my own interpretation of it, but at the same time being real and being grounded with the story.
Yeah, and you nail that there too. If people can't tell, I really love I really dug your film. I'm putting it out there. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but I really dug the film quite a bit.
I appreciate it.
On a lot of aspects. How did you handle or did you take any special care or approach with David Chatham's character, the dad of Mickey? Because man, he was scary. He was scary. You know.
Well, you know what? Me and David discussed that, especially when we did the concept short. So we kind of explored on the character even further in the feature. For
Mhm.
the most part, I didn't really have to give too much direction to David. I mean, I can go over the role and I allow him to build it. I give him the space to come with the character and bring it to the set. So and if he's convincing as hell because David is a brilliant actor. And this crazy part is you'll never meet anybody more humble and more truly genuine than David Chatham. He is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet in your life. So when people do see him in this role, it's almost kind of like a complete 360. It's like, oh my God, like yo, that's not the David I know. So and to be fair, it's not. But
Mhm.
I with creating the character, a lot of it is from a lot of the people I know whose fathers were like my father, just kind of like they're kind of stuck in their way of being
Mhm.
in their time, and their time was a little bit more realistic for what it was at that period in growing up in the 80s and having to deal with certain circumstances that unfortunately like we don't have to deal with today.
Right.
So those type of people like you can feel and you can sense like they're always on edge. They're always thinking realistically. They're always thinking like you have to be on top of this, otherwise the world seems like it's going to crumble. Like, so it's a disconnect in a generation,
Mhm.
and I felt that David brought that to life brilliantly, and he just showcased that certain people like they're not bad people. They just see things differently from you, and that's
Right.
a generational disconnect, amongst people, and particularly in the African American community. So
Mhm.
that was something that I really wanted to showcase, and I felt that David did that brilliantly. And I feel so bad because when I look at the reviews and I see people at the festivals and you're just like how much they hate him, I'm like, if you really got to know David, you love him. Like I'm telling you, as someone who does love David Chatham, you will adore this man. Like don't be fooled by what you see on the screen. He just did what he did. He's an actor.
It seems to happen that way with other people I've talked to where the nicest guy in real life seems to play the best, like, just asshole, like, the guy that you just,
And
like,
you
wanna
know,
hate.
you know what though? I think they get a joy out of that because there's something that they don't get to do every day.
Mhm.
Like I can tell you a million times the great guy that David Chatham is, and then you see this role, and this is like, oh fuck this guy, like, and literally that's what it is, and it's like, no, this is like one of the nicest people you will ever meet in your life. So, like, I'm just saying, like, so when people see this, just know, hey, David Chatham is a good man. Please do not hurt him if you ever do see him over this role. That's all I'm saying. So
he just brought it. That's all. He just brought it.
he killed it.
Yeah.
The 2 days that he was on set, man, was like literally some of the best acting, and a lot of times I think we got through a lot of his scenes in one take or two. Wow. So like he killed it. Like the moment he came off the screen and when Jamil Gooding, our cinematographer, put the camera on him, it's just like it's a wrap. Like he knocks it out. So like yeah, it was a great performance by him.
Yeah, it was. And you got that generational thing going. That's kind of one of the many themes you cover, because we get that also with the Nathan character, who, like you said, the different generations, the break in generations, he does something scummy, but at the same time, he's also going about business the way he's used to it, which is the old school way, to where he's doing something a little shady, but he doesn't really see too much problem with the shadiness he's doing or what he's presenting. Like when they're negotiating negotiating things, Mickey and Nathan, we see that in the real world for sure. We joke about boomers and Generation X and millennials and that, but there is a difference in work philosophy with the older generation, that the younger generation just doesn't want to put up with.
Exactly.
And you address that here. You got that scene with Nathan, which there was a lot of tension there too. I was waiting for it. I'm like, where's this going?
Hey, you know what though? I mean, I've seen that in my time working and this meeting people like the Nathan character. To me, that was probably the easiest role to write. I mean, I didn't like, and I hate the fact that we made the character a white character because the character was really supposed to be black, but I just love working with Samuel Whitehill, so we made the character a white man. So, but because I don't want people to see that and be like, oh, well, the one villain role you gave to the white guy, it wasn't that way. So it was not. So
I didn't take it that way. I just took it as boomer.
No, not you, but I can hear people. So
sure, yeah.
I'm just like when it does happen, but I know that character, and my time of working in like in offices and stuff like that. So for me, it was just like you meet these different type of business philosophies that someone like myself are just more like, hey, I feel like if I'm doing this, that this should be my project, as opposed to I need to put my name on it because I'm more advanced, so on and so forth. And you can understand, you see the true underbelly of how the business world works. So the scammers, as you said. So for me, just showcasing that and just showcasing those events of individuals who are willing to sell their soul in order for profit or for gain or or whatever, and seeing the individual, that one individual who's not willing to, was really refreshing, because you're always seeing it the other way around, the person who do sell and then the regret later. No, what about the individual who will showcase at that moment, this isn't for me, now let's see where the consequences come out of that. So that was, that was something I really wanted to explore. I wanted to showcase, because it all kind of ties together in the art world.
Right.
People who are willing to play the game. If you're not willing to play the game, then it's going to be a struggle. If you're not willing to connect yourself with the hierarchy and basically do whatever they say until they feel like it's your time, then this is what's going to happen. It's going to be a struggle. So those were just some of the many things I kind of wanted to play with this story and this character. It's a layer on top of a layer that you can showcase someone's demise and into the descent of insanity. So because these things, they take a toll on you. So
I mean, especially when you don't have an outlet to try to when you keep running into those road barriers, especially like you mentioned with the doctor who's supposed to help you, and he is kind of, but not. It's like he's listening but not listening, or paying attention but not, and that can really build up on someone quite a bit. I know from some folks' personal experience in that you can see that happen to where they need help and they have people who think they're helping, but they're not actually helping.
Exactly.
And the person who thinks that genuinely feels like they're helping someone, but you're looking at it going, that's not the help they need.
Especially when you would explain it several times what it is that you're looking for and what you need, but yet this individual still feels like, hey, well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to help you this way anyway. And it's just almost just kind of like, you know what, I would rather not have it at all, period. So I get exactly what you're saying. Like, you mean well, but you don't mean well in the manner in which it actually helps.
Right.
You just mean well in a manner in which it helps you.
Makes you feel better. You're like, oh, hey, no, I
It
helped them out.
makes it makes you sleep well at
Yeah,
night, but it makes my life a living hell. So
that's right. That's right. And the art world, especially, I mean, you capture that well. I mean, people I think don't realize what cutthroat business is, and especially when you get those established and those trying to come up and trying to look for help from those who are established. And, well, we'll help you, but my name's got to go before yours on the marquee, or my name's going to go here before yours. Don't worry, you'll get credit eventually. Or it in the indie cinema, we can't pay you, but we'll give you experience and credit the movie. Right?
exactly. And that's one of the worst things that about this that I do hate is the fact that they tell you, well, we'll give you the experience. And it's like, well, what kind of experience are you giving me? One in which I feel positive about this, or one in which I hate you? And it always seems to be more hate than anything.
Sure.
So I mean, you lived up to what you said. You lived up to your creed. You gave me the experience. Now I know not to deal with you. So
I know who to avoid, right?
exactly. And there is a lot of people, and the one thing I didn't really push it, but the one thing I kind of wish I had touched on more, when you do meet a lot of people like the Nathan character, is just the narcissistic behavior. And you see a lot of that in this industry, and it's not just in film. It could just be in any sort of art form, any profession, but particularly in the art world, for whatever reason. The fact that so many people will always genuinely have a narcissistic behavior toward the perspective of, well, art is a business. Yeah, true, but you have no business without the art. And art has never financially asked you for money. It's the artist. The artist is the one is asking. The art sits there.
Right.
The artist has to bring it to life. So it's this narcissistic behavior that you do see from people who are in control, like you said, who just feel like, well, I have to be the one in front. I have to be this. I have to be that, even though it's my talent that got it here. So, so that those are just things I just really wanted to touch on. I felt like I wish I could have explored it more, but I didn't want to run on it too long, to the point where I felt like it would drag. So
right. And no, it clips along nicely and it moves for a drama, and usually not too much in my wheelhouse. I'm more of a genre guy. But I do like a good drama, and Mickey Hardaway's definitely it.
if I could tell you for a second, and a lot of people don't know, what my favorite film genre is?
What is?
It's sci-fi.
Nice. Okay.
Sci-fi
I was going to ask you that.
Sci-fi is my favorite film genre. I love science fiction. So I'm always watching a science fiction. Matter of fact, I was literally just watching Solars a while ago.
Oh yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm thinking of ideas to play with in terms of it. The only problem is I don't want to be like the certain films you do see. Get a good idea, good premise, but you can tell like the visual effects are just
not there. The budget,
God.
Sci-fi on science fiction on the indie budget is one of the toughest things I think when I've talked to people, I've found is that to do it right, you really, unless you're going for a specific aesthetic like campy 80s or something, then you can kind of get away with it. But if you're trying to do like a serious straight up sci-fi, that's hard to do, much like a period piece, right? Because you gotta have a budget to try to sell it.
I always felt that those are the most dangerous genres to try to do on, say, $100 or $200 or even $300,000. Sci-fi films, period pieces. because you have to set a certain tone realistically that matches up with the story. You can have the greatest script in the world, but if you don't have those certain pieces that match with it, it's just basically a waste.
Yeah,
So as much as I love sci-fi, I stay away from it because I know I don't financially have the budget for it.
sure.
But hopefully that third or fourth feature, I will start whipping them out more because I have a whole shitload of sci-fi scripts I want to do. So I'm trying to hope like by the time I get to that third feature, if that's the $1 million film, yes, I
Oh
got an
yeah.
idea.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to that. What would you say is your favorite sci-fi film?
Favorite sci-fi film all time? You know what? I I I love Alien, the
Mm,
original Alien.
hmm
I think that that's great. I know people will look at it as a horror. I still look at it as a sci-fi.
hmm
So that's just my personal opinion. Of course, I adore 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think that that is a phenomenal sci-fi film. I love the original Metropolis. I
Oh
think that
yes.
that
Hmm
is a great film that never gets mentioned. You know, I
No,
heard that I heard is it getting a remake?
I
Is that
had
true?
there that's been in development hell for a while, I think. But there's been a few people that have played around with it. I mean, it's public domain, but of all the things that you're trying to remake, how do you not remake Metropolis? I mean, it's got your themes in there, and it's it's got a female, a strong female protagonist in there too. Antagonist. I mean, how do you not
I
remake
you
that? You know,
I think there's certain factors, and a lot of it would probably would do with a lot of cinephiles who don't want to see certain movies made.
probably.
You know, you know what? I just got word of a friend of mine over at Fox that they were trying to work on a remake of The French Connection, and I literally almost threw up. I'm like, you gotta be joking. Like,
How?
and William Freaking is still alive. I don't think he's gonna allow that. I
How
don't
do
think
you,
he's gonna go for that.
I don't know how you do that. I mean,
So like
uh,
this industry right now, like I knew it the moment like I saw West Side Story. I said, okay, the
mhm,
floodgates are gonna open. Like you're gonna start
mhm.
seeing remakes of movies that don't need to be touched. Because if you're willing to touch that, I know there's a crazy ass filmmaker out here right now thinking, you know what? What about Casablanca? I would love to do a
They,
remake of that.
they did do that. It's called Barbed Wire. No, just kidding. That's
Like,
technically Casablanca. I mean,
I mean, okay, yes, it does have the elements. I cannot argue with you on that. Because it does feel like a ripoff, like word for word, literally. Like so, I can't argue that.
but
I
no,
mean,
you're
I
right.
I I I I do worry about the remakes because I feel
Yeah.
like what I'm seeing right now, it terrifies me. You have millions of original scripts that are sitting
Mhm.
in these studios and the agents' offices that can really be touched up, that can really be something great plots, but you don't financially make any profit on taking a
Yeah.
chance with the original story anymore in the eyes. So don't be surprised in 10 years you see that Godfather remake. So
Oh, wow.
I'm just saying.
Woo! You're not far off, though. You're not far. I've had this discussion with other folks too, and it's like, if you're going to do a remake, if you're not going to grab from the original scripts, which you have piles of, and you're going to do a remake, why not remake something that had a great idea but didn't have the budget? We mentioned Metropolis, but I mean, there's so many films out there, especially 70s and 80s, that could have been probably phenomenal if they would have had the budget behind it. Great ideas.
Mm.
Indie films, it's just they didn't have the budget. If you're going to remake something, I mean, for me, I'm a big sci-fi and horror fan. I didn't actually mind the remake of The Crazies because
Oh, okay.
they took the concept of the original one and they expanded it and did something different. I'm like, that's what you want from a remake if you're going to do that. But like you said, there's so much original stuff out there. It looks like the only place really getting original stuff yet is A24 is putting out.
A24 and Neon,
Mhm.
those
Oh
are
yeah.
pretty good.
Mhm.
Outside of that, I mean, everything else you see, like the sub genres of those studios. So like Focus Features and Fox Searchlight are kind of like going on their route now. Like they have no choice but to go on a route as those studios. They're basically being pulled into that. So yeah, A24 basically is like the RKO of today's world. So that's
Yeah.
a good thing, but at the same time, I don't know, because we got to see if they're going to stay true to the independent roots that they're going for, but the artists are at some point. You see that $100 million A24 movie with The Rock. So like, there's no telling. We'll see.
We'll see what happens. But luckily, we got independent folks like you still making out great product, and great films. At least the indie scene, which has exploded since COVID.
Mm.
You mentioned you did the concept trailer, the concept short because of COVID. How much did that delay for you? Did you start to shoot when COVID started to let up a bit, when they started to get more restrictions released? What, as far as
We
that challenge goes, how'd that go?
in, in 2020, we literally shot as they were coming out with certain rules, but there was none in effect yet. So
Yeah.
basically, I had to make my own rules. So I did like a lot of people beforehand, before SAG
Mhm.
and everybody else came up with the rules, that they're supposed to be getting. So I basically created my own. So I went on Amazon and bought a whole shitload of stuff. So the mask, the gloves, I basically created my own safety rules on set when we did the concept short. So we well, there was no guidelines yet.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm basically creating my own. Everybody say I'll stay 6 feet away from each other. I'm like, okay, this give an arm length. Don't breathe on each other. So but for the most part, when we did the concept short, everybody was kind of safe because the cast and the crew was small anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and everybody, went and did the tests, and, everybody was safe and it was sound and it was fine. And we were in an environment where everybody was familiar with each other. So we got through it, and we ended up making the short killed. I think we played in like over 100 festivals and won 60 awards. And eventually we got onto PBS and Revolt TV, and we're on Prime Video right now on Shorts TV.
Mhm.
So the concept short did exactly what it was supposed to do. It got me the funding to make the feature. So I don't regret shooting in COVID. The only thing that I regret was the fact that we had to do the virtual festivals.
Oh
Like
yeah. Yeah.
those were always a pain, because whoever was working it for the festivals can never get the monitors to work on time, and you're just overlapping everybody else's conversation. And when you do these interviews, like the Q&As afterwards, so that might have been the worst time. I it, I do not regret shooting during COVID. I just regret the festivals at that time. I If I had known, I would have just never submitted to any festival. I would have just went right to Shorts TV and just got it on TV and just started promoting it from there. So
Just self-distribute, right?
basically,
Which a lot of people start doing now, especially with their shorts. So, who would you say is your most influential filmmaker? Who inspired you the most, or who do you take from, like, their concepts in that?
um, I have a couple that come to mind, three in particularly. Charles Burnett, Robert Altman, and Stanley Kramer. Those are the three filmmakers who I truly do admire the most, because their work was really more in your face, raw. They controlled the true rebel independent spirit of maintaining their worth and control without giving into the studio systems. Although Altman kind of did later
Yeah.
with Popeye and oh Jesus Christ. But he made up for it with movies like The Player and Shortcuts. So but I love that rebel independent spirit of filmmakers. Just like I love but filmmakers like Tarkovsky and
Mhm.
Bergman, those filmmakers who are willing to control their self-worth artistically and individually. So those are filmmakers who are probably the most influential to me, that I love and admire the most, and who I kind of always go back and watch something and steal something from, to try to change to my own work, even if it's not the
Sure.
same genre. It's just even if it's not the same genre, it's just something that I can watch and just learn from. I always watch
Mhm.
something new when I see their work. Like I was watching Persona on Sunday,
Oh
and
yeah.
I can
Mhm.
see certain camera angles that I kind of want to play with, and it made me get interested when I'm doing my shot list for my next feature. So it's almost just kind of like, okay, I kind of know what I want to do
Mhm.
artistically with it. So I'm always going back and watching something and just being inspired, and those are the ones who inspire me the most.
Well, that's a great trio right there, for sure. It's funny you talk about that. I look at we did a visit a few years ago, a series looked at 8 Alfred Hitchcock films, and occasionally we'll review one
Mm.
on my podcast. And it's funny, you get this group of people that, oh, I won't watch any movie past 2000, and you're like, but yeah, those people, and you're like, what?
Yes.
Why? If you watch Alfred, you go, here is pretty much every modern filmmaker has borrowed something from
It's
Hitchcock.
still borrowing from, like, literally. Like, it's crazy the influence that man had. Like, he's been dead almost 50 years, and you still
Yeah.
have filmmakers who are stealing from him. Like, it's amazing the influence that he had on the craft. And I say this about Hitchcock for people who don't understand. The man was more than the master of suspense. He was literally a master of the craft,
Mhm.
whether it was genre, it was humor, or whatever. Like, you look at his work, it just truly is brilliant. Like, I go back, the other day I was, you know what, my favorite Hitchcock movie is all time is
Mhm.
Rear Window.
Oh yeah.
Rear
Oh.
Rear Window. I know everybody always say Vertigo or Psycho or or whatever, but Rear Window to me is so brilliantly directed, is so brilliantly done, and the fact that he did it with such narrow spacing of those characters, with not too much scenery to kind of like cut
Mhm.
and deflect from. He just allowed those actors to be themselves on screen, but then his direction of creating the horror and the tension and the suspense with a lot of humor. Although I feel bad for that dog. I feel oh my god, the dude broke that dog's neck.
Poor dog.
But yeah, but Hitchcock was a brilliant filmmaker. He was the one who generally people say is one of the greatest. He still doesn't get the credit he deserves after all these years.
Yeah, well, it's funny because we've revisited some of his earlier work, because everybody thinks of, like you said, Psycho, Rope, Rear Window, Vertigo, but he had a whole slew of movies beforehand, and we've been watching some earlier ones, and it's just like, wow, you can even see it then. He's got this indie spirit to him, I think. I mean,
Lifeboat is one of my favorites with his indie
oh,
spirit. You can feel it. He was like F the studio. I'm doing that anyway. I think was he working with Selznick at that time? I don't think so. I don't
I,
think he was working with Selznick then, but I mean afterwards, because I
yeah.
know he did Rebecca when he came in,
Mhm.
and so but yeah, you could feel it in movies like that. When he got here, it was just like, hey, get out the way, I got this. And you could feel that indie spirit in him. So
Yeah, and I tell people too, it's like, Psycho technically was an indie film, I mean, so much of his stuff was shot on smaller budgets. If you look at what he's doing, like you mentioned, Rear Window, I mean, there's really not a whole lot of like set or location or other things. It's all, told from a similar space, but he made it feel bigger.
he
And
made it feel like it was so much more there than
Mhm.
what you would expect beneath the eye. And like you see it in his early movies, like the 39 Steps and
Yep.
so on. Like, even with all those low budget films, he makes things feel like Rope. Like, come on, literally, like what are we talking about here? Like, that's basically the first Birdman. This
Yeah.
straight camera shot, like, all the way through. Like, it was brilliant. And
Well,
that was 1948, like,
right.
literally.
And it's one of those things too. Well, you would appreciate it probably, being behind the scenes and everything, that they're doing this with film cameras. They aren't doing this with like little digital cameras or whatnot. They got these
Exactly.
big
The
freaking
big
rigs.
portable ones, like it makes the modern Panavision 35 millimeter cameras look small. Like those cameras was just so boxed. The way that they shot, it's insane.
It is. Oh man, but and so it's interesting that when people say that, I'm like, yeah, you got to go back and look, because you can see what people borrowed and influenced your modern filmmakers, your Spielbergs, your Lucases, your Tarantinos, your all these folks, Scorsese, all of these folks. If you look at what they do and you go back to those really early films, you're like, Hollywood's been using the same techniques for 100 years.
It works if it's the right person
Mhm.
behind the technique, and that's the
Right.
thing. A lot of times, it just seems like they're just throwing anybody there now,
Mhm.
and that's the
Yeah.
terrifying thing about where we're at. So, but man, you see those techniques in Marvel movies, and
Right.
But you tell that to the Marvel fan in the theater, they don't care just as long as Spider-Man is kicking somebody's ass. So it's like, we appreciate it, but you know.
You got to go. You got to go back to some of the classics at least, just to see where it
Exactly.
comes from. Well, this has been great, Marcellus. And I think it's a winner here. It's winning awards, deservedly so. Mickey Hardaway, I dug it quite a bit. I would recommend it for people who do looking for indie dramas, because that's hard. I think people don't realize that even drama, you hear, like we were talking about sci-fi and period pieces, but getting the right emotional feel for a drama, that's a challenge as well, isn't it?
It is a challenge, even more so because it can easily have gone south when you
Mhm.
tell these kind of stories where it could just be too over dramatic, and you can see it in the performances where the actors are just trying to put that extra little bit of emotion on there, as opposed to just allowing the role to play and just
Mhm.
let the character come to them. So like these kind of stories, and particularly when it's films that particularly don't have any too big name actors and actresses, you have a lot of new faces, it always can turn somebody off. So I always felt like the performance truly has to be the biggest bearing here. And I felt like with this film, like the script is there. I just needed the actors to be there. And the
Right.
fact that so many of these actors and actresses were in it and they brought the absolute best in there, but willing to take direction. And I'm willing to give myself and just let them be them on screen. So these kind of stories, they're hard because you can go down a section on different platforms, and it's just kind of like okay. So
I understand you're working on a budget, but okay there. Yeah.
exactly. So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh
Like
yeah.
some of these films, like we won't name any platforms, but I think a lot of people know the platforms we're just talking about when we're discussing what these movies are on. And it's just kind of like, okay, I waste I wasted how much of my time just looking at the trailer. No, I don't want to look at this. So
Well, and
so yeah,
that's even the toughest part, because some of these folks, you realize, maybe should have had someone in their ear going, you could trim an hour off of this 2.5 hour movie, really.
and you know what though? You try to let everybody find their own way. I mean, for
Sure.
one, I've always said I've always been on the perspective of, anybody can pick up the camera and shoot something,
Mhm.
but everybody shouldn't.
Right.
And that's the number one thing. So I always feel like if someone is willing to ask for advice, I give my opinion. But there's a lot of times you're just dealing with filmmakers today because everybody is accessible to the equipment. They just feel like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm gonna just tell my story because it's my story. It's fine. It is your story. And I congratulate you on getting your story done. But just saying, you probably could have asked.
And you do have a clout of indie stuff out there now, because like you said, it's accessible again. You can literally buy the same equipment they're using to shoot your Marvel films with for your home, relatively, if you get some funding or whatnot. Not a whole lot, and you can shoot it a high def. You got your phone, it's like 4K. There you go.
Literally.
Soderbergh did that with with the one film, Unsane, I think it was, where he shot it with an iPhone or something. It was like
He
crazy.
literally shot at, I think he shot the whole movie with an iPhone 6.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and then Baker did the same thing with Tangerine.
Yep.
So
Hmm.
so it's like, yeah, you can do it, but it's just like still like they have the resume and the backing to do so. The average person out here is like, I appreciate your ambition, I appreciate your love of it. I get it, but sometimes a lot of us just aren't ready, and I had to go
Hmm.
through that myself. I have a lot of work that I don't want anybody to ever see, maybe until I'm dead and gone. So we all have to learn and ask questions, and some people just feel like they can just jump right in without any experience. You'll have to go to film school, but at least watch a YouTube tutorial on how to shoot. You know what I mean? Like,
There's plenty of
if
them
it,
out there now. There's plenty of them out there now.
there
So
are tons. It's just like, yo, the basic thing is just, we could talk about sound and editing and cutting. The one thing that annoys me with some of these films, and I say this, it's just there's just certain moments of cutting. Like, like the cut, it doesn't have to be the greatest edit cut. Just know when the scene is over.
Yeah,
Like,
this isn't like you're shooting on VHS and you might have that little extra space because you didn't cut it right. You just can't get it that accurate. You can do that now with digital by the frame. So
exactly. When you know a scene is bad, don't let this run for like 2 or 3 more minutes. Just cut.
no, no,
Ask somebody.
it'll get better. It'll get better as it goes along. Trust me. Yeah.
Exactly.
And yeah, it's like not saying don't do it, but cut your teeth on stuff that may never see the light of day while you learn the equipment and that. And then later on, come up with something, maybe. So, well, you've come up with something great, sir. And I thank you for your time for sure. Is Mickey Hardaway, is it going to be a physical release or right now is it just digital?
Right now we're still screening the circuit. So we have a couple screenings get ready to come up. Festivals like Dances with Films, Roxbury International. We also have one more coming up at Golden Door International in New Jersey, and then we'll see what goes on from there. Probably going to be screening to about maybe the end of September. And then from there, we'll be hoping to go into either theatrical release or be streaming then. So it should be on platforms at least, I would say October. So by October, we should be on platforms.
Well, I hope so because more people need to see this film. I was very excited for it to talk to you today, and I thank you for your time. What's next for Marcellus Cox? What do you got coming up, sir?
So at the moment right now, I'm finishing up the script for my second feature, Jefferson Street. It's a period piece since we were talking about it earlier. And it follows the a African American detective from East Texas in the year 1951 as he travels down to the South to investigate the murder of his mother at the hands of the Ku Klux Klan. So this is really more of a crime thriller.
Sure.
So I'm really kind of like want to touch my hand on that. It's a story I've been kind of developing for the last 6-7 years now. And then after that, I hope to do a sci-fi I've been working on. So it's called the sci-fi called The Dream House. And it's about this guy who moves to downtown LA and he can't sleep at night. So he goes to this drugstore where you're able to buy dreams.
Oh, nice.
You can buy dreams, daydreams, positive vibes that get you through the day, but it comes at a price of your soul.
Oh, so nice. And yeah, if following this trend, you seem to make content that speaks more than just entertainment. It's both entertaining, but also has something to say. And those sound awesome. I'll be happy when you make those next. When you got your next film, I'd love to have you back and talk to you about the next film because that sounds Jefferson Street sounds very interesting, very intense, a little bit noir, and I love noir. So
it definitely will have like a noir, neo noir kind of feel to it. So it definitely will have that sort of vibe the way it is written. So it definitely will be something I think that once I have a chance to show you, you'll appreciate it.
Fantastic. Well, as long as the main character wears a trench coat at one point, I'm there. So just say that. I love my trench coats. So
definitely have a vibe for that. So you'll see something.
Awesome. Where can they follow your stuff, sir? What do you have a website or anything? Where can they keep up with all your projects?
So people can keep up with me on social media. You can find me at Instagram, Marcellus World 24, or just type in Marcellus Cox, you'll find me. You can also find me on Facebook, Marcellus Cox, and other work. If you'd like to see trailers or if you'd like to request to see one of my shorts, you can follow me on Vimeo / Marcellus Cox. So it's not hard to find me on there. You can see the trailers. And if you'd like to see any of the previous shorts, you can always reach out to me. My email is coxmarcellus@gmail.com. I'm always open to talk and discuss. So yeah, I'm available. People want to talk and see work and just talk cinema. So I'm here.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, sir. Check it out, Mickey Hardaway. If you got it near a festival near you, I suggest you see it and keep an eye peeled to this fall. You may see it on the streaming, and hopefully we see it there soon for you, sir. And yeah, thank you for your time.
No problem. I appreciate it.